seminars that we organize. We're going to hear from Ms. Karolina LaBrecque, who is a member of our Connect and Collaborate group. And I've had the opportunity to hear her speak a couple times in that space, and I've always taken away something good from that. So hopefully you all can do the same. Just a couple quick updates from the chamber, if I can. We have some cool events coming up that I just wanted to make sure you have on your calendar. Starting with a week from today, we have our public policy group getting together just to look at state issues, and we're going to have David Juvet from the BEIA, joining us at that. On the 26th, we have a Chamber Chat Live, which is going to focus on the SBDC Resiliency Business Survey and the results right here on the Seacoast. They drill down right to the Portsmouth community and get us some great data there. And then a couple of just things to put on your calendar for April. On the 6th, we have our Economic Outlook, the view from here, presented by CIT Bank. That will be live streamed from the Seacoast Rep Theater at 8:30 in the morning. We have invited the same speakers that spoke last year at the Economic Outlook, which is like 2 days before the world ended. So they were all very positive, and then the world fell apart 2 days later. And so we're going to hear from Will Arvello, the Director of Economic Development for the state, Jeff Feingold, the editor at the New Hampshire Business Review. And for a local perspective, we have Jay McSherry, who owns just about everything in Portsmouth. We also will have on the 14th, you want to mark your calendars for our State of the State with Governor Chris Sununu, who will be joining us via Zoom. He's going to share all sorts of great information about what the state is working on. There's a lot of great stuff, interesting stuff going on legislatively at the state level that I think our business leaders should be aware of. So mark that on your calendars. Governor Sununu has always been great about taking questions, and it's a great opportunity to share input directly with him. So I encourage you to join us on the 14th via Zoom, again at 8:30 in the morning. Whole lot of other stuff going on. Check the calendar, read your emails from Jen, who is on the call. Thanks for being here, Jen. Lots of great stuff happening. So with that, I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to turn it over to, before I have to do that, I want to make sure I mention that our sponsor for these educational seminars is TD Bank, and we thank them for their support. They've been supporting these educational talks. Normally we get to use their conference room downtown, we get to hang out and have food together. Obviously we can't be doing that right now, but hopefully soon we'll be back down there enjoying their space and hospitality. So we appreciate that and all their support. So with that, now I can turn it over to Karolina LaBrecque, who's going to talk to a little bit about how we can manage remote individuals for success. And it sounds like she's got 5 steps to share with us. So Karolina, take it away.
Yes, so thank you so much for having me today. I'm hoping that you can all hear me well. If not, I can adjust my monitor a little bit. So I wanted to talk about the 5 steps to productive and happy team in a remote environment, but in reality, it doesn't matter if that team is remote or in person, all of those steps apply. It's just in remote environment, you have a little less control over some of those steps. So is this working? Here it is. So we're going to talk about the know what your business values and goals are, manage the team, time and tasks, and manage the physical environment. That's the part when it's much harder remotely. Manage emotions and communication and building your support network within the team and outside team. So first of all, I would like you to pull out a piece of paper and really jot down fast, without thinking too much. What would you like to change in your organization? What are the things that you are not working right now? What are the things that are working? Like a really fast jot down, 5-minute, 2-minute kind of a thing. And you can add to this, what would your perfect running business look like for you? If it was your golden globe and you could magically swift up, how would that look like? Good. Got the baseline, kind of, sort of. So I started with that because, like in a personal life, in business, you need to know where are you going if you want to get somewhere, right? And in business, that base for you is the mission statement. Your goals are not the mission statement, actually, I have to tell you. Your mission statement is your lighthouse for your business. It is what you're going to want to show up in the world as, right? So very often our goals, both in life and in business, don't unfortunately line up with the mission. So what is your business mission? By itself, your mission statement doesn't mean much. Your mission statement by itself is just words on a piece of paper. And sometimes it becomes in 21st century kind of a laughable stock because every business posts their mission statement, right? Well, but are you really living that mission? Is that mission really a shared mission of your employees? Is it resonating through the whole organization? Because there is nothing as powerful as mission that's shared by a group of people. And the idea that's supported by a group of people who care about making a difference is the most powerful thing you can have. So this may not be exactly what you're expecting, but in order to manage people remotely, which is harder than managing people in person, you really have to have people tie in into your vision and your mission and into what are you here to do. So how do you develop your mission statement? You develop it based on principle and values. Mention, I said, not goals. What's the difference? The principles are basically your guidelines for human conduct that are proven to have enduring permanent value. They are your lighthouses. They are the fundamental and essential self-evident truths. If you ever have a question if something is a principle for you, ask yourself if you can live with something opposite to it. Can I kill and be happy? Right? Can I kill another human being and be like, yep, I'm fine, it's all okay next day? So that's obviously a very extreme example, but it drives the point down. They are the natural laws that shouldn't be broken. And some examples for business, it may be fairness, integrity, honesty, human dignity, service, quality or excellence, potential and growth, patience, nutrients, encouragement. Those can all be examples of principle. Obviously, we don't have time today, and every organization is different to hone in your vision statement and your mission statement, but I'm just throwing this out there for you to start thinking about it. How much of what you're trying to accomplish is tied down into that mission of yours? So principles are not values. And mission statement should be based on both principle and values. So what are values? Values are basically your beliefs or your organizational beliefs and opinions that they are shaped by the principles, right? So you have the principles up here or on the bottom if you want to build a house. Then you have your values, and then on top of that, you have your goals. So your principles dictate your ethics. Your values dictate your direction, right? This year, maybe you value new client acquisitions, and next year, maybe you value team development. But those are your values. Or maybe you value one promotion of one product over the other. So that's another step. And values are not shoulda, coulda. Values are what's really corely important to me and my organization. So in personal life, for example, when you are in your 20s, you probably have similar principles to the ones you have in your 30s and 40s. But let's agree that your values in 20s are very different than your values in 40s, right? You may value your principle that you want to have social life will look differently in 20s than your 40s. And it's the same for your organization. The size of your team may be different when you are in a startup point than when you are in a growth phase, and much different when you are in a maturation phase. So the other thing that's very important about values, that they have to tie into principles and to the why you want to do this. The why is what's going to get your organization and you personally as well over the humps and the difficult times, right? Why do we want to accomplish it? Why does it matter? Those are your values. As long as your goals, we get to those in a second, are set in those values with why, they will be much easier to convince people to play along with what you need done. So how do you write a mission statement? And obviously today we are not going to write it, just a fast review. You write your cause. Your cause is who you serve, what you do, where you serve, right? Your actions, what we do, and your impact, change for the better. So how are you impacting your world, right? So this is the step number 1 of building your team. Why is it so important, both in person as remotely? We all need to be on the same page. And in psychology, both organizational psychology and psychology in general, unless you have everyone playing to the same goal, you're going to have difficulty scoring, right? So making sure that everyone is on the same page is important. So along those lines of your perfect business, I want you to jot with this in mind of what, who, where, and change that we do better really fast. What is really close to your heart and important to you in the next 5 years or even a year? But for a business, I would say 5 years it's a good scheme. What are your business goals and dreams? Okay, so now we can move from those principles and values to your yearly goals. As soon as my mouse stops working. So now you can move to the organizational goals that you want to achieve in the next 12 months. By the way, with my own team, I do this in November usually. It's a good time for me to plan, but everyone has a different system. And now with the goals, you want to be very specific. How many sales? How many people on a team? Who's on that team, right? And again, this is not something that you're probably going to have time to go in depth right now, but I encourage you to revisit that after we are done today. So back to your team. Moving from the organizational to your team. In order for your team to work really well, you have to hire to align with those principles and values. Hire people who are on board with your mission. Hire people who get it. And just that one step is going to make your life a hell of easier. And then you hire with skills for the goals that you want to achieve, right? So their ethics and their principles and values have to align with your organizational values, but they have to have the skills for the goals that you want to achieve. And you have to get the buy-in for the why and the mission. If not, you're not going to have totally, I'm not saying it's not going to work, but it's not going to be a 100% wonderful experience if you don't get that buy-in. So one of my most favorite sayings is by Brené Brown. If you haven't heard about her, look her up. I strongly encourage you to do that. Is that clear is kind and unclear is unkind. And part of this workshop is about communication. If you have those values and your goals clearly in front of you and you clearly communicate it to your team, everyone is on the same page. If you are muddying the waters and you don't have that clear communication, that is not kind to your workers, right? So moving on, time management. I am going to say something very unpopular, but you cannot manage time. You can only manage tasks. Time does what times want to do. It's going, right? You can fight it what you want. The only thing you can manage is tasks. And here's an interesting research out of Mr. David Pink, which basically says that people are more creative and more effective the more autonomy they have. So the more you micromanage people, especially on creative tasks, the less success you're going to have. There are some departments and some things that have to be very micromanaged or should have very strict guidance. But if you want creativity and growth, autonomy is the key, and hiring for autonomy is the key. So time management from a managerial perspective needs to look at reasonable deadlines and reasonable workload for the situation of a given person. And as a behaviorist, I have to say that positive reinforcement is the key. The carrots and the candies after will get you way farther than the sticks. The sticks have to be are needed sometimes, but the positive reinforcement, especially on a variable schedule of reinforcement, is going to get you way farther in organization than nagging and pushing and doing all of the above, right? So how do the deadlines look like? I'm guilty of this. I create on a fly, and my team had to remind me a couple of times this year that just because I have an idea on Sunday, it doesn't mean that the web page for it is going to be ready on Tuesday, if that makes sense, right? So have reasonable expectations of people. Just because my brain goes 100 miles an hour doesn't mean that average people calendars go 100 miles an hour. And it's the same on reasonable workload. If you know that someone is homeschooling, you probably cannot expect them to work 12 hours a day or give them a rogue work that requires 12 hours a day commitment when we have COVID children at school, at home, pretending that we're schooling when in reality with the youngest one, we are homeschooling. Time management. I'm a huge fan of block schedule. Your productivity as a team and as a person will go highly up if you have dedicated time to dedicated tasks. How does this look on a team level? Give permission to have times in workers' time when they are not expected to communicate with anyone. Be honest with yourself. How often do you have the, constant distractions of your phone beeping and your email popping up and you trying to write something down, you're trying to finish something up, and here is your phone and here's your email and Facebook and all of that. Disconnect and have times for your team when you can literally say, okay, we have a morning meeting and now for 2 hours, unless your house is on fire, we're not doing any communication. Let's regroup at 10 or 11 before lunch and then answer the emails, right? That gives them the permission to not be connected all the time and get the work done. And that moves us to the other part of this, and this is huge in remote setting, of how does your environment look like? For me, I'm blessed. I have a home office. I have a dedicated office that actually is HIPAA compliant. I can lock the door. And even when my children are home, most of the time I don't have interactions. My children are at school, actually. They haven't been remote. They have been in person since beginning of the year. And I work like this all the time. But I also know that people sometimes are doing this on a kitchen table, with the kids sitting next to them. So how does that environment look like? And by the way, this is not just for COVID times. A lot of teams are going to go remote, and a lot of teams are going to go hybrid, right? In the future, because it's cheaper, because it's more convenient, and some people prefer it. So also remember that some people prefer it and some people hate it. I've been working with few business owners currently who hate working from home, and they crave getting out of that space, mostly because they don't have the dedicated space. For high performance, the dedicated space is very important. Human brains tend to be compartmentalized. If I'm in my kitchen, I'm probably thinking about my dishes as a woman and not necessarily my work. If I'm in my office, I'm thinking, this is my office, this is my work, this is where I go to work, right? So having that space is important. Taking the family situation into consideration is also very important. So what has been working pretty well for a lot of organizations, if it's possible for your organization, is flex time, right? If one spouse works in the morning, the other works in the afternoon, or splitting hours tasks. I'm a big fan, and that also is supported by research, that it's much better to hold people accountable for projects and tasks done contra hours put in, if that makes sense, right? So get this work done. I don't care how and when, but get it done. I'm not going to babysit you and sit there with my watch and make sure that you time in your time, but that get the work done. That is much more effective. Interesting new research on organizational behavior. People who work 4-day weeks, 4 and 3-day weeks, are much more productive than people that work 5-day weeks. Why? Because even if it's in an office setting, they are not wasting time because they're enjoying that day off. They're enjoying the time when they can go and run the errands and do all of that. So they are not wasting time by Kool-Aid. They're trying to get everything done in those 4 days, and productivity goes up. Contra the standard 5-day week, we tend to, especially in an office setting, mingle and drag, and there is a coffee, and there is the lunch, and there is all of that, contra getting the work done. So what do you prefer? Hold your workers accountable for work done or for hours clocked? Physical space. If they're working remotely from home, is it clean? Is it clutter-free? How does your brain work? Some creatives need the piles. Some people clean desk, right? So the less distraction, the better. And this is the favorite part of me being a holistic psychologist, is encourage movement. All the research on high performance shows that our brain is capable of hyper focus for about 45 minutes to 50 minutes. I encourage block schedule with 50 minutes in it. And I encourage this little device called water bottle, because guess what happens if you constantly drink that? About every 50 minutes, you're going to have to get up and visit your bathroom. So that gives your brain a break, your body the movement of preferably 200 steps in an hour, right? And it lets you reset. It's also a perfect time, and I am going to do that right now, to transition from one task to the other. So if you have that up and down, here is the block schedule, here is what I'm doing, now it's a break. You're also more likely to push yourself through tasks that you don't like, because let's agree that we can all do an unpleasant task of whatever office task you hate with a gut for 45 minutes. Sounds much more appealing than doing it for 4 hours, right? So give yourself a permission to, okay, I'm going to do accounting, which I hate with a passion, for 45 minutes. And whatever I get done in that 45 minutes, then I can get up, move, and either I will continue or I will transition to a new task. But it's much more manageable. And movement is important for your brain, for your body, for your circulation, and everything else. All right, moving on. Productivity tip for everyone working in this remote environment. when the lines between your home life and your business get blurry. Make sure you have transition time from and to work. Remember the times when you used to commute, right? So you you drop your kids off or not, you got out of the house and you were driving to work, hopefully half pay attention to what's happening on the road, but you already were kind of thinking, okay, this is my task list for today and I'm going to do this and that. And by the time you got to the office, you were in a work mode. And then when you got out of the work, you had the nice half an hour to 45 minutes average for United States commit to say, work is behind me. I have to take my son to hockey, my daughter to gymnastics. What's on the table? What do I do for family life? Now, all of a sudden, we are required to go from work, children, work, right? And there is no transition time. So I encourage all of my business clients to work in a routine where you actually go for a bike, go for a walk, wherever. You leave your office at home, you go for 20 minutes outside, get your movement in, and you come back. And that was your commute. By the way, big chance you get your steps in for a day. And your circulatory system will thank you as well. So it allows also for separation between this is my work time and this is my family life on a mental level. Ooh, managing emotions. Those are the hardest. So what are the emotions? The thoughts, the acceptance of situation, the reactions, the mindfulness, and the focus, right? I have to say it, but it goes all the way back to that mission statement and to how you hire and why you hire. And how well you know your employees and how big is your organization. Let's be realistic. I'm a small business. I have a team of 3 currently, and they're contractors. But I know what's going on in their life. And I communicate clearly. And I can support them in things like, oh, my parents just got COVID, or I haven't seen this person forever and they're in hospital, right? Because remember, people in your organizations are not robots. They bring in the whole baggage of their life with them. So the emotions are going to be there, and you have to understand that the load is not just load of the work, it's the load of everything on them. So if you see someone acting out of whack, out of their normal, you might want to approach them and say, hey, is there anything else going on in your life? What's up, right? And how to manage those emotions, depending how big you are. If you have a good organization that has a good human resources, you probably also are plugged into some psychotherapy help or coaching help, which I provide. Being able to go through that acceptance, control the reactions, and understand that we are all humans, especially in this wonderful time of 2020, right? Going into 2021. It also helps with focus and hyper-focus, which is, as I said before, the research shows that it's better to hold people accountable for work done than time logged in, right? I know some, like banks, you have to have tellers or whatever, they have to work hours. There is not, if it's a service industry, they have to work hours. But for the creative industries, it's much more productive to work project-based and not hour-based. So as I mentioned before, getting the buy-in. Why would I, as an employee, put the company in front of my family, right? Why is this a mission that's an important mission? Clear expectations, clear and realistic expectations. So your clear expectations, people will thank you if they really know what's expected, what the task is. Go back to your college years or your school years. How much did you enjoy those professors who told you, I'm one of them. I tell my students to write a paper. They get to choose a topic, but then the paper has to have specific guidance, right? But did you enjoy those assignments when someone said, write a paper on this topic and you didn't have the font specification, deadlines, nothing. And you were like, well, what, how, when, how many pages, what am I doing with this, right? So what I'm trying to tell you that you're going to have much more productive team if they have clear expectations and they can plan for it. And the clear communication of who, what, when, why, and how, especially in project-based work environment. Who is going to get it done, when, how is it going to look like what's the end product? Why are we doing this? Ever worked for someone that you are like, why the hell are we even doing this? That's really frustrating, right? I'm doing this work and why am I doing this? And how do you want me done? Do you want me to print it or do you want me to send to you in a PDF format? Do you want to deliver to the client over phone, over Zoom? How? Which leads us to support network for your workers and having a clear structure of organization. As I mentioned before, all the science of psychology shows that positive reinforcement is much better than any type of punishment. And it's more effective than negative reinforcement. What's reinforcement? Reinforcement is anything that increases the behavior. Punishment is anything that decreases the behavior. So positively reinforce means to put a stimulus in an environment that increases the behavior. And there's such a thing as positive punishment when you put a stimulus in an environment that decreases the behavior. Remember when I said you have to have people on the same page with you? We very often assume that what's reinforcing to us is reinforcing to the other people. That is totally not true. A good example of that is how many of you raise your virtual hands like sweets? There's a virtual hand somewhere, right? Majority of you are like, yay, give me sweets. Would you be surprised if I told you that for me that's a punishment? It increases my pain levels. So if I eat something sweet with processed sugar, I'm in pain for next 2 days. So if you give me a cookie, I'd be like, I will probably politely take it and pass it down to my children, but it wouldn't be reinforcing for me. Make sense? So you have to know who is working for you and what is reinforcing to them. Variable schedule of reinforcement means that you don't reinforce constantly. They never know when the price comes. On and off. That one, I could give a whole lecture on how that works, but that one is actually the interval variable schedule of reinforcement is the most resistant to extinction, which means that the behavior that you build that way is the hardest to squish, which is very important to understand, because if you unavoidably reinforce a behavior that you don't want, the same rule applies, right? And then autonomy, as I said, autonomy for the workers, all the research shows that it gets you better results than babysitting and micromanaging. I'm pretty sure each of you at least once in your life had a micromanagement, and I'm pretty sure that you enjoyed it equally well as I did, right? Which is hell no. I am not 5. You don't have to hover over me all the time and tell me every single little detail of my day. Building the support network also means keeping open door of communication and having clear channels of communication, right? So in the age of internet, we need to have one place to communicate. Either the whole team is on one email, or I prefer MeisterTask. I love MeisterTask because it allows you to have variable people on tasks and pass it back and forth and shows baselines. Trello is another one. There is a ton of them. But have one platform to communicate, so that if someone forgets to check their email, like it's not 5 places that you have to go digging for information for a given project, right? Clear problem resolution. If I have a problem, who do I go to? Who am I going to ask for help? so that no one feels like they got stepped over, passed by and whatnot. And understand who is on your team. That goes back to know your people, know who is dealing with what. And I really hope that as a businesses, part of your mission statement will be to support your workers, right? Yes, customer is right, but I'm not a big fan of saying that customer is always right. And have your workers back when it needs to be had. So not tolerating abuse from customers, not tolerating whatever, and so that they know that you have their back, understanding that life happens and that we sometimes make mistakes. So conclusion, clear is kind, unclear is unkind. Know exactly where you go with your business and with your people, and simple is better. Simple makes it less chance for mistakes and less chance for a breakdown. So the less complicated your systems are, the bigger chance of you and your team succeeding. If you would like to continue this conversation, obviously I talked also about the understanding of your goals and allow as much as flexibility as you can. Create the environment of and off work that supports the people that you hired and that you hire people that support your mission. If you would like to continue this conversation, I offer a 45 minutes free session, which can give you a little more insights tailored to your personal company.
Jen has a question.
Hi.
Hands up.
Yeah, I was wondering, what was the program you mentioned before you said Trello? It sounded like Meistertask.
Meistertask, yes.
Oh,
I love Meistertask. I live
like
on
it's
Meistertask.
German, Meister?
Yes, it's spelled German way. Yes.
Oh, never heard of that one.
Oh, it's a big one. They also have Meistermind that connects to it when you can do all your maps.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's all I need is more stuff, more programs, but maybe.
Or you just need one that does all the things that you need to do after you decide what you want to do.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any questions on this? Yes.
I have a question. The conclusion at the end where you summed everything up, are you able to provide like those 2 slides to us?
Sure.
That would be great, because I tried to take notes as I went along, and I wrote to my manager about how great this was, and she's like, "Oh, good. I'm glad you could, share with the senior team." And I was like, "I'm not going to remember any of this. Not enough to share with people, enough that I've absorbed some of it, but
So good news for your manager is that I do those workshops for organizations, so I have no problem if we find a date that works.
Okay.
Come in and do something that may be more tailored to your company. Contra this obviously is very generic.
No, it was great though.
This is all over, 300 feet view of science on both human behavior and organizational behavior. So I'm not sure if you want me to email that or.
So Karolina, why don't you send me the slide deck and I can email it out to everybody that registered. We've also, and I should have mentioned this at the get-go, we have been recording this and I can post it on our YouTube channel and you can,
sure,
listen to any of those comments there. You can replay that last 10 minutes or something.
That would be perfect.
And I may have been taking a screen capture to post for social media. But,
thanks, Jen.
Don't break the laws in New Hampshire. You have to ask permission. I learned that this year in college.
I thought I only had to ask
every student if they want to be recorded.
Oh, but I didn't record audio. That would be Ben breaking the rules. I just did a screen capture, so it's visual.
Oh. Anything else?
I want to know how Gary's doing. He's been quiet.
I'm doing good. I'm trying to take as much notes as too, but I'm going to appreciate the slides.
Okay.
I didn't even recognize Gary with the little beard going there.
Well, less hair on top, Ben, like
Yeah,
you.
he's reversing it on me.
Below.
Awesome. It's looking good. Well, I appreciate Karolina and for everyone joining us and taking the time. I don't know if Karolina, you want to drop your contact information in the chat for people so they can contact you directly if they wanted to follow up.
It's on the last slide deck, I think, which is another reason why I'm very excited for the slide deck.
Look
It
at you.
is,
You're on
and
top.
I can't type. Apparently, I cannot click in the right window right now. I can type in chat as well.
Hi, Angela.
While you're typing, this was really, really good. Thank you. I'm interested to try to figure out how to employ some of these things in the chaotic circumstances that my team and my organization are in right now. So for like block scheduling, I'm interested in trying that. The communication, blackout areas would be really, or blackout times would be good. Having reasonable expectations is very difficult because we have a what I consider a very important mission and huge things that we need to accomplish, but then also it's balanced with the understanding that we're all in like this impossible situation. And so it's trying to figure out how to do what is needed to be done when you are in an impossible situation and trying to keep those expectations reasonable, especially for myself as well.
So, that's when the communication comes in. And I can tell you what worked for my husband and me. I set up my business. I cannot say I'm thankful for COVID because that would be, way up there, and I'm not. But I tried to do, for example, Zoom meetings 4 years ago for 101s, and everyone were looking at me like I have two heads and a tail. And I was like, what's the passion of driving to restaurants and sitting and drinking coffee all day long when you can back it up? So it's efficiency. So what worked for me and my husband is that I worked mornings and he working at shipyard as an engineer offset and worked evenings. And it was literally tag you it. And we've been doing that for 3 years with 2 small kids at home during the summer. That, I will do the business meetings and run my business in the mornings, and then 2 o'clock tag you in. So having that very clear expectation of your team that, okay, Mary today can do those hours, right? Remember, which is why I said that project-based, it's so much better than clock-based.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And having the clear physical expectation of yourself. If my 4-year-old, for example, this morning had a wonderful morning, don't even ask, it was a good day to start to my day. It happens. He's 4, had a total meltdown because I didn't listen completely to his story that he forgot. Lasted 15 minutes. It's one of those things to being really taking the deep breath in and saying, okay, this is not the end of the world. I can take a step back, I can figure it out, and I can catch up with this and that. And then clear expectations of your team of like, okay, this is like fire. This needs to be done. Tweaking with the brochures right now, probably not so much.
Right.
Playing with the graphic designer, cute, but maybe not the highest priority. So what really takes you from when you work on your mission and you set your goals, right? So let's say getting clients. How do I get clients? So what are my actions to get those clients? Right? Okay, we need the revenue. Obviously, if you want to get paid, you need the revenue. So what are the actions to get that revenue? And then focus just on that. And
okay.
I'm going to tell you a big secret. Good enough.
Yeah. That's the story of my life.
That's good enough. Like,
yeah.
It doesn't have to be totally perfect. I just made a typo. Like I didn't put an enter after my PhD. That's not part of my email, by the way. But, good enough. I figure you figure it out. It's info@help2grow Institute. Make sense? So don't get hooked up. That's when that emotional acceptance, commitment thing comes in, and being flexible. Get the main stuff in your life done and let the little things go, because the little things it's what's gonna break you.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. And they have.
It's
yes.
one of those things that step back of the perspective. Yeah,
Thank you.
you're welcome.
Awesome. Well, any final questions for Karolina as we wrap it up? Seeing none. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It's great. And I appreciate Karolina's time and putting that together and sharing. I definitely jotted down a few notes. I wish I had a more independent workstation. Like children were like cooking over here, like literally children, stoves and fire. So I was like doing this half the time, making sure nobody was burning the house down. So, you know, details. But anyways, great to see everyone. I appreciate Karolina's time. She's been a wonderful resource over the years. So have a wonderful afternoon. It's beautiful outside. Go take a walk, enjoy, and we will talk to you soon. Take care.